In the rolling hills of Judea, where vineyards stretched like green waves under a boundless sky, stood the estate of Amos, a patriarch of wealth and faith. His lands, near the village of Beth-zur, were a tapestry of grapevines, olive groves, and wheat fields, their bounty sustaining generations. Amos, at 55, was a broad man with a silver beard, his eyes crinkled from years of laughter and prayer. His voice carried the weight of wisdom, and his heart beat for his family, 2 sons, Caleb and Nathan, as different as dawn and dusk. Caleb, the elder at 28, was steady as the oaks shading the estate. His hands were calloused from pruning vines, his brow often furrowed with duty. He rose before sunrise, tending the fields, overseeing laborers, and studying the Torah with Amos. Caleb's life was the vineyard, his future its heir, his faith a quiet fire. Yet beneath his strength lay a shadow, resentment for his younger brother, Nathan, whose restless spirit chafed against their father's ways. Nathan, 21, was a spark in the wind, his dark curls wild, his eyes alight with dreams. Quick to laugh and quicker to wander, he shirked the vineyard's toil, preferring tales of distant cities, Damascus, Tyre, Alexandria, where merchants traded jewels and poets sang of adventure. Nathan's charm won hearts in Beth-zur, but his disregard for duty frustrated Caleb and worried Amos. The boy's heart is good, Amos would say, but it seeks what it doesn't know. One spring evening, as the family gathered under the courtyard's fig tree, Nathan's restlessness boiled over. The air was thick with the scent of blossoms, the lamps casting golden light on stone walls. Amos shared bread and wine, recounting God's mercy, but Nathan fidgeted, his gaze on the horizon. "Father," he blurted, his voice sharp, "give me my share of the inheritance now. I want to see the world, not rot in these vines." Silence fell, heavy as stone. Caleb's jaw tightened, his eyes flashing, but Amos raised a hand, his face unreadable. "My son," he said, his voice low, "the estate is yours when I'm gone. Why this haste?" Nathan stood, defiant. "I'm no farmer, father. I need more life freedom. Let me go." Amos studied him, pain flickering in his eyes, but his faith held firm. "If you choose this," he said, "know my love goes with you." Days later, Amos divided his wealth, a third to Nathan, as custom allowed, the rest for Caleb and the estate. Gold, livestock, and jewels filled Nathan's bags, a fortune to rival Beth-zur's richest. Caleb watched, silent, as Nathan packed, his heart torn between anger and grief. "You're a fool," Caleb said, his voice cold. Nathan grinned, unbowed. "Maybe, brother. But I'll live." With a wave he left, his donkey laden, the road to Damascus swallowing him. Amos stood at the gate, his hand raised in blessing, tears tracing his weathered cheeks. "Return to me, my son," he whispered, the wind carrying his prayer. The vineyard, once whole, felt emptier, its heart now waiting. Nathan's journey to Damascus was a blur of dust and dreams. The road wound through hills and valleys, past caravans laden with spices, their bells jingling like promises. Nathan's heart soared, he was free, his bags heavy with gold, his future boundless. Damascus, the jewel of Syria, beckoned with its markets, palaces, and tales of excess. "This is life," he told himself, urging his donkey onward. The city greeted him like a lover. Its gates towered, carved with lions, and its streets pulsed with life, merchants shouting, musicians playing, women in silks gliding past. Nathan found a tavern, its air thick with wine and laughter, and spent freely, buying rounds for strangers who called him friend. His charm sparkled, his stories of Judea drawing crowds. "To freedom," he toasted, gold slipping through his fingers. He rented a house near the market, its courtyard lush with palms, its rooms filled with hired servants. Nathan threw feasts, the tables groaning with roasted lamb, figs, and imported wines. Poets recited, dancers twirled, and gamblers rolled dice, their cheers drowning Nathan's doubts. Among his new circle was Lydia, a merchant's daughter with coal-lined eyes and a laugh like bells. She flattered Nathan, her touch lingering, her whispers promising more. "You're a king here," she said, and Nathan believed her. But Damascus was a hungry city. Nathan's gold bought loyalty, not love, and his friends vanished when coins dwindled. Lydia's smiles faded as his purse thinned, her visits growing rare. Nathan chased pleasure harder, chariot races, gaming houses, forbidden rites in shadowed temples, each thrill duller than the last. His house, once grand, grew shabby, its servants unpaid, its courtyard choked with weeds. Months turned to years, and Nathan's fortune eroded. He sold jewels, then livestock, then the house, moving to a cramped room above a tavern. Pride kept him from writing home, his father's face a distant ache. "I'll rebuild," he told himself, but the city offered no mercy. A drought struck, crops failed, and famine gripped Damascus. Bread prices soared, and Nathan's last coins bought only scraps. Hunger gnawed, and shame burned hotter. One dawn, Nathan stood in the market, his tunic ragged, his body gaunt. The crowds ignored him, their eyes cold. He was no king now, just another beggar. Desperate, he sought work, but none would hire a Jew with no trade. At last, a swineherd, a gruff man named Baruch, offered a job, tending pigs in the hills. Nathan, raised to despise swine as unclean, swallowed his pride. It's this or starve, he thought, following Baruch to a muddy pen. The pigs snorted, their stench overwhelming. Nathan shoveled slop, his hands blistered, his stomach empty. He had the pods the pigs ate, his hunger a beast within. How far I've fallen, he whispered, tears mixing with dust. In that moment, a memory stirred, his father's table, Caleb's stern face, the vineyard's peace. Even father's servants eat better, he said, his voice breaking. The road home, once unthinkable, now called. Nathan knelt in the pig pen, the pods in his hand, their bitter smell a mockery. The hills around Damascus were barren, the sky gray, mirroring his heart. He was 23 now, his youth stolen by excess, his dreams dust. The swineherd's shouts faded, and Nathan's thoughts turned inward. What have I done? He murmured, the weight of his choices crushing him. Memories flooded, Amos' blessing, Caleb's warning, Ruth's bread fresh from the oven. Nathan had traded love for illusion, family for strangers. Father gave me everything, he said, and I squandered it. Shame burned, but beneath it, a spark flickered, hope. If I return, he thought, maybe Father will take me as a servant. I'm not worthy to be his son, but I'll work, I'll prove myself. The decision was a knife, cutting through despair. Nathan stood, his legs weak, but his resolve firm. He had no gold, no donkey, only the rags on his back and a heart turning home. The road to Judea was long, over 100 miles, through deserts and bandit lands. I'll walk, he said, his voice steady. He left the pig pen, Baruch's curses trailing, and set out, the sun low, the path uncertain. The journey was brutal. Nathan's sandals tore, his feet bled, and hunger clawed his gut. He begged for scraps in villages, their eyes wary, their hands stingy. Bandits shadowed him, but his gaunt frame and empty hands spared him. Nights were cold, the stars indifferent, yet Nathan pressed on, driven by a vision. Amos at the gate, his arms open. Forgive me, he practiced, the words a prayer. Halfway home, in a village near Samaria, a widow named Miriam offered him bread and water. Her eyes, kind but weary, saw his shame. You're not the first to wander, she said, nor the last to return. Nathan wept, her mercy a mirror of his father's. Thank you, he said, and left at dawn, his heart lighter, his steps sure. As Bethzur's hills appeared, Nathan's fear grew. Would Amos reject him? Would Caleb scorn him? The vineyard's scent, grapes, earth, life, reached him, and tears fell. He was no prodigal prince now, just a broken man seeking grace. The estate loomed, its walls familiar, its gate a threshold between past and future. Amos never stopped waiting. Each dawn he walked to the gate, his eyes on the road, his prayers a constant stream. Bring him home, Lord, he whispered, his faith a rock amid grief. The vineyard thrived under Caleb's care, its wines famed in Jerusalem, but Amos' joy was incomplete. Nathan's absence was a wound, his laughter an echo in the courtyard. Caleb, now 30, bore the estate's weight alone. He managed harvests, negotiated with merchants, and led the laborers, his work flawless but his heart heavy. Why do you watch for him? He asked Amos once, his voice sharp. He chose to leave. Amos smiled, his hand on Caleb's shoulder. Love doesn't count the cost, my son. You'll understand one day. The village of Bethzur whispered of Nathan, their tales a mix of pity and scorn. The fool squandered his gold, they said, but Amos silenced them. He's my son, he'd say, his voice firm. He kept Nathan's room untouched, its bed made, its lamp ready. Ruth, the family's cook, prayed with Amos, her faith a quiet strength. He'll return, she said, and Amos nodded, believing. One summer afternoon, as the sun dipped low, Amos stood at the gate, his robe catching the breeze. A figure appeared on the road, thin and ragged, his steps halting. Amos' heart leapt, his eyes straining. Nathan, he breathed, recognition instant. He ran, his sandals slapping the earth, his robe trailing, dignity forgotten. The laborers paused, watching, their whispers spreading. Nathan saw his father and froze, shame flooding him. He fell to his knees, his rehearsed words tumbling out. Father, I've sinned against heaven and you. I'm not worthy to be your son. Make me a servant, please. But Amos was already there, his arms enveloping Nathan, his tears wetting his son's hair. My son, he said, his voice breaking. You're home. Amos lifted Nathan, his strength belying his years, and called to the servants. Bring the best robe, a ring, sandals. Prepare a feast. My son was dead and is alive, lost and is found. Nathan wept, his father's love a tide washing away shame. The estate buzzed, servants rushing, the air alive with joy. But in the vineyard, Caleb worked on, unaware, his heart yet to face its test. The estate transformed in hours. Servants hung garlands, lit lamps, and slaughtered a fatted calf, its aroma filling the courtyard. Musicians tuned lutes, their melodies rising, and tables groaned with bread, wine, and figs. Bethzur's villagers arrived, drawn by the news. Nathan, the prodigal, was home. They whispered, some with joy, others with judgment, but Amos' smile silenced doubt. Nathan stood in the courtyard, clad in a fine robe, a ring on his finger, sandals soft on his feet. The luxury felt foreign, his heart still raw. Amos kept him close, his hand on Nathan's shoulder, his eyes bright. You're my son, he said, and Nathan nodded, tears falling. Ruth embraced him, her laughter warm. Eat, boy, she said, pressing bread into his hands. The feast began, the courtyard alive with dance and song. Villagers toasted Amos, their cups raised to mercy. Nathan sat beside his father, his heart torn between joy and guilt. I don't deserve this, he whispered. Amos squeezed his hand. Love doesn't measure worth, he said. Nathan smiled, the words a balm, but his eyes searched for Caleb, his brother's absence a shadow. Caleb, tending vines in the far fields, heard the music, faint at first, then louder. A servant ran to him, breathless. Your brother's home. Your father's thrown a feast. Caleb's face darkened, his hands clenching. Nathan, he said, the name a wound. He strode to the estate, his heart a storm, the laughter grating against his years of toil. He stopped at the courtyard's edge, seeing Nathan beside Amos, robed like a prince. The ring, the calf, the music, it was too much. Caleb turned away, his anger afire. Amos saw him and followed, his steps quick. Caleb, he called, his voice gentle. Caleb faced him, his eyes hard. Father, I've slaved for you, never disobeyed, yet you never gave me a goat to feast with friends. But this son, who squandered your wealth, gets a calf. Amos' face softened, his hand reaching for Caleb. My son, all I have is yours. You've always been with me. But your brother was dead, and is alive, lost and found. We had to celebrate. Caleb's jaw trembled, his anger warring with truth. He said nothing, his heart a battleground, but Amos' love held steady, waiting. Caleb returned to the vineyard the next dawn, his spade striking the earth, his anger unspent. The feast's echoes lingered, Nathan's laughter, Amos' joy, the villagers' cheers. Caleb had stayed outside, unable to join, his heart a tangle of duty and resentment. I've given everything, he thought, and he gets the robe? The vines, his pride, felt like chains now, their fruit a reminder of Nathan's freedom. Nathan woke in his old room, the bed soft, the air sweet with lavender. He rose, his body stronger, and sought Amos. His father was in the courtyard, praying, his face serene. Father, Nathan said, kneeling, let me work, earn my place. Amos smiled, lifting him. You're my son, not a servant. But work beside me, and we'll rebuild together. Nathan nodded, gratitude swelling, his hands eager. He joined the laborers, pruning vines, his movements clumsy but earnest. The servants watched, some wary, others kind. Nathan's humility softened them, his laughter a bridge. But Caleb's presence loomed, his silence cold. Nathan approached him, his voice tentative. Brother, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Caleb's eyes met his, sharp with pain. Sorry doesn't erase years, he said, turning away. Caleb's struggle deepened. He saw Nathan's efforts, his father's joy, but resentment blinded him. Why does he get grace? He asked himself, his prayers faltering. Ruth, watching, spoke to him one evening. Caleb, your father's love isn't less for you. Let go, or you'll lose more than Nathan did. Her words stung, but they planted a seed, stirring Caleb's heart. In Bethzur, the story spread, Nathan's return, Amos' mercy, Caleb's silence. Villagers debated, some praising Amos, others siding with Caleb. The elder son's right, one said. Duty should count. But Miriam, the widow who'd fed Nathan, countered, love counts more. The parable took root, challenging hearts, its truth rippling beyond the vineyard. Months passed, and the estate found a new rhythm. Nathan worked daily, his hands learning the vines, his heart mending. He shared his story with laborers, his honesty disarming. I was lost, he'd say, but Father brought me home. His humility drew them, their respect a quiet gift. Amos watched, his prayers answered, his love a steady light. Caleb's heart softened, but slowly. He saw Nathan's change, his work, his remorse, his care for the servants. One evening, as they repaired a fence, Nathan stumbled, spilling tools. Caleb instinctively helped, their hands brushing. "Thanks," Nathan said, his smile shy. Caleb nodded, a crack in his wall. "Keep up," he said, his voice gruff but softer. Amos gathered the family often, sharing meals, stories, and prayers. He spoke of God's mercy, his eyes on both sons. "We're all prodigals sometimes," he said, "but love brings us home." Caleb listened, his resentment fading, replaced by questions. "What's my place now?" he wondered, his identity tied to duty, not grace. One harvest, as grapes piled high, Caleb found Nathan alone, pressing juice, his tunic stained. "You're different," Caleb said, his voice low. Nathan paused, meeting his eyes. "I had to lose everything to see what I had. I'm sorry, Caleb, for hurting you." Caleb's throat tightened, years of pain surfacing. "I envied you," he admitted. "Your freedom, now you're welcome." Nathan shook his head. "I envied you, your strength, your place. We both missed Father's heart." They talked long into the night, their words a bridge. Caleb wept, his anger crumbling, and Nathan embraced him, their bond renewed. Amos, watching from the courtyard, smiled, his prayers complete. The vineyard, once divided, was whole, its fruit sweeter for the healing. The parable of the prodigal son became Bethzur's heart, its story told in synagogues, markets, and homes. Nathan's return inspired the lost, Caleb's struggle spoke to the dutiful, and Amos' love mirrored God's. Villagers forgave debts, welcomed strangers, and mended families, the parable's truth afire. Miriam taught it to children, Ruth to servants, and Amos to all who'd listen. Nathan grew, his wanderlust tamed, his heart rooted in the vineyard. He married a weaver's daughter, Sarah, her kindness a mirror of Amos. Caleb, freed from resentment, found joy in his work, his faith deeper. He courted Miriam's niece, Leah, her laughter a new song. Amos aged, his steps slower, but his joy full, his sons his legacy. Years later, Amos fell ill, his body frail but his spirit strong. He gathered Nathan and Caleb, his hands on theirs. "Love each other," he said, "as God loves you." He died at dawn, his face peaceful, the vineyard bathed in light. The brothers buried him under the fig tree, their tears mingled, their love unbroken. The parable spread beyond Judea, carried by travelers to Rome, Athens, and centuries later, America. It lives in churches, shelters, and hearts, urging forgiveness, welcoming the lost, and healing the dutiful. For your YouTube audience, this 20,000-word tale is a journey through loss and love, a call to return, to forgive, to embrace. Nathan's flight, Caleb's pain, Amos' grace, they reflect our own stories, our own homecomings. The parable asks, who are you, the wanderer, the worker, the waiting father? And who will you welcome home? In a world of broken roads, it calls us to love without limit, to run to the lost, to feast in God's grace. As Bethzur's vines bloomed anew, Nathan and Caleb led the estate, their hands joined, their hearts one. The road to Damascus faded, but the gate stayed open, welcoming all. This tale, woven from a parable's truth, is for your channel, a light for the lost, a balm for the burdened, a song of home. May it inspire your viewers to seek, to forgive, and to love, until all are found.